So imagine, if you will, you're forced to buy something that some of you might not even think you need, but you have to do it at a certain age. What age is that? Well, for most Americans, age 65. So what are we talking about? Medicare. That's right, Medicare insurance. Oh, yeah, I know. When you get close to 65, trust me, now I'm not there yet, but people tell me they're overwhelmed with people marketing to them about how to purchase Medicare. Well, imagine this, if you will. You're forced to buy it. You don't have choices. You have choices in who you buy it from, maybe which carrier, but you have no choice in purchasing it for 99.9% of America. There are some exemptions, but not many. But think about this. Could you imagine that your neighbor living in the same lifestyle as you're living in, similar home, cars, automobiles, maybe a similar net worth, may be paying 2, 3, or 4 times or more less money for the exact same Medicare plan than the one you have, and that one is costing you 5 times more, and it's all because they had a better person helping them with their retirement planning, and most importantly, their provisional line on their 1040A tax return. It's true, not making the right decisions when it comes to Medicare can cost you thousands of dollars and unnecessary extra taxation on your Social Security. Forget that choosing the wrong Medicare plan could cost you thousands of dollars in healthcare expenses. That's on top of what we just discussed. That's why you need to know all you can about Medicare insurance. When it comes to choosing your Medicare options, many people feel absolutely overwhelmed. And the other people that don't feel overwhelmed, they should, because what they're telling me is they really don't understand it and they're just going to go with whatever somebody suggests and hopefully be fine. Well, when I hear those words fine, I think about after 31 years of marriage to my wonderful wife, Terry, when I go home and I say, "How's your day, honey?" And she says, "Fine." Oh, Lord, what did I do or not do? Well, Medicare decisions are the same. Think about this. Do you need Medicare A, B, C? Do you need Medicare Advantage? And what's the difference in all these? That's why you need to talk to someone that is a Medicare professional. Hold on, you already know that, but yet are you talking to someone who has, as a fiduciary, your best interests at heart? Or are they trying to sell you the plan that may pay them the highest commission? At Alloy Wealth, we only use fiduciary advisors that have to put your best interests first. Well, that carries on to our Medicare professionals because we want them to live by those standards. So we will clearly explain to you the differences, but that's not enough because we have to ask you questions about your lifestyle, what drugs you're currently taking, how is your overall health, and things like that. So we, together with you as a team, can help you determine what you do need and, most importantly, what you don't. I remember very clearly my mom, Lord rest her soul, every year she would go in this thing called the donut hole. And I don't eat donuts, but I once did, and I loved a donut. But they had that hole in the middle. That's the part they didn't fill in. Well, she used to go in that every year, sometimes October, sometimes September. What am I talking about? Well, her drug coverage would run out. And then she would be what was called the donut hole, where she had to ask for more money from my brother and I to help support her in retirement. We were gracious and happy to do that. But I know how much it bothered my mom. But at the time, I don't know that she really had the right Medicare coverage. You see, not choosing the proper drug coverage, Part D of your Medicare, can end up costing you thousands of unnecessary dollars because you're not covered for the prescriptions you need. But also, paying for something you don't can also end up costing you hundreds of dollars. That's why you must deal with a Medicare professional, one working at a fiduciary type of firm where they're going to hold your best interest to heart. Imagine, if you will, you're trying to choose between a Medigap plan or a Medicare Advantage plan. What's even the difference in these things? Well, here's some of the questions you could expect to be answered when working with a firm like Alloy Wealth Management. How much do you travel out of the country or out of the state? How much will you be out of network is the real question we're asking here, because some of these plans limit you or try to control you to only getting coverage when you're in network. And when you go out of network, it can get quite expensive. Well, when I speak to someone, or my team does, because it's not my expertise, and they find out that, 11 years ago we went to see my daughter, but now she just comes to us. So we don't do a lot of that. Well, they might be perfectly fine with a plan that only works in North Carolina, let's say, or South Carolina. But when you hear someone else that's planning on touring the United States, we've only been to 3 of the 50 states, we're going to the other 47 in the next few years, I could clearly see a time where they could have a medical emergency in some other state. Again, these are questions that are going to have to be answered. Do you need a Medigap plan that has lower premiums potentially, but higher deductibles? Oh, that might not work, though, if we don't have the money to cover those deductibles. Do we need a Medicare Advantage plan, which maybe has less out-of-pocket going? All these have to be taken in the context of the person that's actually using their hard-earned dollars to not only buy the plans, but to use the plans. That's why working with a firm like Alloy Wealth Management makes so much sense. While this whole thing about Medicare can seem overwhelming, and a lot of times it is, we can really help make it simple. But how about this? Did you know if you enrolled late in Medicare, it's going to charge you penalties? Yeah, you're going to pay. You're going to pay. But I might enroll too early. There's so many questions you have. But guess what? Those questions don't make you special. They make you very normal, because we've heard them before. Most likely, you're not going to stump our Medicare professionals because they've already heard it before. And that's why we build plans with certified financial planners, and that's why we include all the questions necessary to help you make the right decisions about when you should enroll, why you should enroll, and what you actually need and don't need. Many times, one of the more common questions we get is for people like myself. I'm not there yet, but one day I'll get to 65, Lord willing, and then I'll have to make a decision. Do I want to, and how do I enroll in Medicare while still working with my current provider? And which one's going to give me the better coverage? Oh, and what about the cost? Many employees find them paying themselves, quite honestly, an awful lot of money is being deducted from your paycheck. But when you turn 65, you may be able to get in a Medicare plan that would lower your out-of-pocket expenses, give you the proper health care you need and want, and save money. Well, those would be wonderful things. How do you know? How do you know what's right for you? That's why you take the time to schedule an appointment to come in and talk to a Medicare professional and get a plan that works for you. Let's put all those questions you have in writing and get you the answers you deserve. The stats are overwhelming when it comes to how many people watching this video right now may one day need long-term care. And that's the one thing, it's the 800-pound elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about. But yet, when you look at the numbers in a room and how many of the people sitting in that room are actually going to need it, it's truly unbelievable. Fidelity ran a study recently that said the average couple age 65 will need over $300,000 just to pay for medical expenses, not including long-term care. Right there, people just want to turn it off and not watch anymore because they're like, I don't even have that much for retirement. What do I do? What do you do when it comes to long-term care, knowing the numbers are what they are? Well, it's certainly, many people rush out at age 55, 50, 55. They meet with a great insurance professional that certainly has their best interests at heart, or at least we should hope so, and they purchase a long-term care policy. And I got to tell you, that's an uncontrollable in a financial plan. When I say uncontrollable, what I mean is you pay. By the time you might need it, the premium's gotten up so high that you can't even afford it. Did you know you can actually call the provider and say, hey, I can't keep making this payment, it's too expensive? And the gracious insurance companies will most likely tell you, well, let me ask you, could you pay us what you paid us last year? Yeah, I guess we were eating cat food a couple times a week, but yeah, I could do that, I think. Well, great, we'll keep your payment the same. What? Yeah, we'll do that for you. Of course, if you need us, we're going to pay you less than we were going to pay you because you're not paying as much. Well, that doesn't sound like a good idea because most likely when you bought the policy, what it was going to pay sounded like a lot of money, but because of a high inflationary periods we've been in, it may not be enough anyway. So what do? Does it mean you don't need long-term care? That's not what I said, but traditional long-term care insurance, it has to be looked at with a really fine-tooth comb. We've personally never offered a traditional long-term care policy. We've never done it because I just don't believe in them. But it doesn't mean you don't need a plan for if you are one of the people that's going to need long-term care. So what about the questions like, is there such things as asset-based care? What about this? If you had a written financial plan that showed you had some extra money, maybe money that you have typically in a CD or something, not your emergency fund money, but some money that's out there, did you know there are ways to develop a long-term care strategy that could be used with that? And then if you never needed it, which that's my plan, I'm just not going to need long-term care. I'm going to try to stay healthy, and I'm sure that's your plan. We could be wrong. But what if we invested in a long-term care asset-based strategy and we never needed it, and then it went to our beneficiaries? Or while it was in there, it grew, it may be CD-like rates. Is that even possible? There are so many new tools available to help address this. But here's the overall caveat when it comes to long-term care. Just putting your head in the sand like an ostrich and praying it doesn't come your way is not a strategy. It's being foolish. Sitting down and looking at alternatives, looking at what you have to have first to live on, and then what might be considered extra. And is there a way to take that money and turn it into a plan that works for you? Very possibly, but it has to all be done using fiduciary advisors, certified financial planners, so you know you're getting the correct advice, especially with something as important as long-term care. Many times we'll sit down with a retiree or a future retiree, let's say they're 5 years out, and we're building a plan done by a certified financial planner. One of the questions we'll come up with is, we see how much they're, say, contributing to their 401, certainly a good thing to save for retirement. But we find out they've already contributed 80 or 90% of their investable net worth in one account, the 401, but yet they never even used the HSA account. Oh, I knew about that, but HR said we had one. I don't really understand it. Did you know that HSAs can help pay for so many medical things in retirement? Did you know you could actually grow your money that you've invested in an HSA tax-free when spent on the correct items, like, for instance, making your Medicare premiums, covering the deductibles, covering the co-pays on insurance, or buying the new electric toothbrush that you really want? Yeah, you can use an HSA. Many times we're giving advice to clients about, hey, let's slow down those 401 contributions because you've done a good job, and let's make sure we use some of the other tools that are available to you, like the HSA that we really weren't even paying attention to all those years ago when the HR department offered it. Now may be the time to take a close look at HSAs. I remember very clearly sitting with a couple, and they actually had a fairly well done, or better than fairly well done, retirement plan. And so they came in, they thought they were in good shape, and we sat down, one of our fiduciary advisors sat with them, my planning team went over it. We uncovered a few things, but nothing that was drastic until we got to the one thing that nobody had ever addressed for them. Well, really a couple of things. You see, this was a couple much like my wife and I, Terry. We actually tithe at our church. We like that. We believe in it. We think it's biblical. We think it's spiritual. We think it's the right thing to do. Well, we found that this couple was doing the same thing, but they were taking dreaded RMDs. What is that? The required minimum distributions out of their 401s and IRAs, the plethora of accounts they'd never paid tax on. Well, they were withdrawing this money that they really didn't need. And what was happening because of that decision, it was increasing their tax liability on the provisional line of income on the 1040, on the front page of the 1040. Well, we showed them how they could take those RMDs and we could make charitable deductions. They were already doing that anyway. They were already tithing at their local church, but they could go to a plethora of nonprofits, whatever, it's your money, whatever you choose, as long as it's a nonprofit that accepts those charities, those donations. We were able to restructure the required distributions in this case, lower their provisional line. But in doing so, guess what else it did? It lowered the tax they were paying on Social Security, and we were now able to get them Medicare premiums that cost them much, much less. All that happened because of one thing, changing a couple little things when it came to the taxation of their money. Well, they actually became clients because they felt like if we were able to catch this, what else could we catch? And we told them they actually had a very competent advisor that had just left these little things out. What things are you missing when it comes to Medicare, charitable contributions, tax filing dates, or Medicare filing dates, and the penalties that it can cause you by missing those things? That all needs to be taken into consideration when making important decisions with your money in retirement. I really wish there was an easy button. Remember the office supply company store that had the easy button? You just mashed it and everything was supposed to become simple. It's really not that way in life. At least that's been my experience. But proper planning can help make life a lot easier, especially retirement planning. Remember, living large is about the fact that retirement is so much more than just finance. Healthcare is certainly one of those examples. Many people struggle with healthcare because they want to retire, but they're afraid to get off the company insurance. They certainly can't afford the COBRA policy because that's out of sight. And they're also not 65 yet, or their spouse isn't. And so they don't want to can't go on Medicare. So what do they do? Well, that becomes the problem, doesn't it? But the answer is there are ways to accomplish all of this. It's why you need to schedule and take the time out of your day to get started on a confident financial future. Let a licensed fiduciary at Alloy Wealth sit with you and ask you the questions that you know you need answered. Let them put it all in writing and build a plan done by a certified financial planner. And you can claim that for absolutely free by just taking that first step to get on a journey that's a much more confident financial future. Let's talk about all those Medicare decisions and where we're going to get health care coverage for you if you do want to retire early. At least have the information you need so you can make good, informed decisions. We live in a crazy world where global events and world events have people asking themselves, can we even retire with everything going on, or should we? Well, the answer is you won't know until you take the time to get a plan done by a certified financial planner. You can claim it for absolutely free by picking up the phone or getting on the QR code, scanning the QR code, and booking an appointment to sit with a licensed fiduciary advisor and get your plan done by a certified financial planner. Do it now.